Welcome to the Dalen Show. Hello, world. It's so good to see you. And it's so good to be back and just continue doing what I love. And I want to say thank you guys for your continued support. And just real quick, as I say that, just continue to subscribe, follow us on Twitter and Instagram or X and Instagram. Make sure you're leaving a like and comment. And just continue following it and sharing the show, man. It's been a journey so far. Got just a few more episodes left of season 4, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. And so let's continue this work. Without me talking too much, so let's introduce our guest for this week, Mr. David Eckert. Woo! First of all, David, thank you for joining me. I have watched your work for a few months now from afar. And first off, man, how are you doing so far in this summer month right now?
I'm doing good, man. Trying to stay cool, but yeah. I appreciate you having me on. It's going to be fun.
Of course. David, real quick for people watching and listening, just real quick for people that may not know a lot about you, if you don't mind, give me just like a brief introduction about yourself, maybe like where you're from,
Sure.
just some things you've done in your lifetime to get you where you are today, man.
Yeah. So right now, if you're not familiar with my work, I cover Ole Miss for the Clarion Ledger. I've been doing that for about, almost 2 years now. But yeah, I'm from real small town close to Scranton, Pennsylvania. So if you've watched The Office, you know what Scranton is. That's the first thing that everybody says.
Mm-hmm.
I went to college at Penn State. Stuck around there. I covered the Nittany Lions for about a year and a half, 2 years out of school, and I came down here and I covered Southern Miss for about a year, and then I got probably less than that, actually, maybe 8 months. And then I moved up here. So long way from home, but I really enjoy what I do, and it's been really fun so far.
I want to ask you just real quick, with the opportunity of being a Pennsylvania native and going to Penn State, what was the Peach Bowl like for you this year? I know you kind of had to do your job and work
Yeah.
for Ole Miss, but I know that Nittany Lion love still is in you. So how was it kind of being a part of kind of seeing the fan bases on both sides?
It was interesting. Now I'm going to blow your mind here a little bit. I have never really been a fan of Penn State football.
Mm-hmm.
I did not grow up a Penn State football fan, and then I got to Penn State and I started immediately covering them. And you're taught you don't root for the team that you cover. So I never really as far as rooting for them, that was never a problem. But my Twitter timeline was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I really enjoyed it, actually, because I got to see a bunch of the media people who I worked with really for, 4, 5, 6 years in some cases, and spend the week with them after, being away for about 3 years. So that I really enjoyed that part of it. It was interesting, it got a little, I don't know if fans, every fan knows this, but you may remember the controversial fake Twitter account
Mm-hmm.
that was tweeting fake quotes.
Yeah.
That an Ole Miss staffer attributed to Penn State players who never said those things. And the Penn State media folks who I know were like, "Oh my gosh, well, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen." And I'm just like, it's like a Tuesday for Lane Kiffin, man.
Yeah.
It's just, there's always something wild going on. So, but no, I really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. I love that, man. First, I want to talk about growing up, man. You say you were born in Pennsylvania. What was your childhood like, man? And as well, you are now a beat writer. Where did your love for sports come from? Was that something at a young age that kind of had come to you? Did you grow up into it later, maybe in high school? When did you figure out you kind of wanted to be a part of the sports world as it is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I grew up, me and my dad and usually my mom, we sit down at 7:00 at night and we'd watch the Mets every night. It's painful, but that's but it was kind of just from my parents. I got that gift, and I've just kind of been addicted. And Growing up, I knew that I wanted to work in sports, and I was always I did pretty well in English class and all that stuff. So I figured, why not try sports writing? And, I found once I got to doing it when I was in college, that I really liked the storytelling aspect of it too. And so I kind of got lucky in that way because what I found in this business is like, if you're not passionate about the art of journalism, it doesn't matter how much you love sports.
Yeah.
You're not going to stick with this. So I got a little bit lucky. But yeah, I had a great childhood. Really supportive family. It in a way it kind of prepared me for small town life, I guess, because again, like I drove 45 minutes to go grocery shopping, so it's like,
Yeah.
um, it's I'm from that type of community where everybody knows everybody,
Yeah.
and I find Oxford is very similar to that, so it feels a little bit like home. So yeah, but yeah, kind of. I would say I identified sports journalism as something I kind of wanted to do in high school, and I kind of got lucky that I liked it, because I think a lot of people have the same thought process as I do, and it ends up not being for them, and all of a sudden it's like, what do I do with my life? But
You just said something, and I just like feel intrigued to ask you the art of journalism, and I say this as someone that's aspiring to continue to be a part of it.
yeah,
There are so many parts of media that I just don't enjoy, and I wouldn't say they're journalism because I just think they're sports media. When you say the art of journalism, how do you kind of continue going about your own work in a manner that say years to come are continue to be proud of in a way that, you put out your stories and your work that you always feel like I'm proud of how I did that and how I went about it and how I put it out. How do you continue to do that in a world of, media that's kind of
yeah.
edgy in the way that it is right now?
That's a great like, seriously, that's an awesome question, and that's actually something that I think about a lot. I think the reality of what I do is, I do not have time to make everything a masterpiece. I just don't, there's going to be some stuff that I'm asked to do that, maybe isn't artistic, or might not fit your classic definition of journalism.
Yeah.
For example, like, people love to read about what Lane Kiffin says on Twitter, for example. So, do I define that as like, the art, or no, I don't. But what I try to do is every week I try to do one thing that I'm proud of. And so I don't always get there, but for me, I'm very passionate about in-depth storytelling, right? A little bit of like psychic depth stuff that's not just Ole Miss won the game, and so I really try to do that as often as I can, and that's what kind of feeds my writer's soul, I guess, a little bit. But look, I mean, especially not necessarily right now, but in season, when or in football season, or in March when you got football, or baseball, and both basketballs going, like, the demands of time kind of prevent you from doing everything, at the level that you would like sometimes, and that is hard. That's something that I've had to gradually learn to like deal with, because I am a perfectionist.
Yeah.
If I make a mistake, like, I beat myself up over it. So, just trying to accept that, all right, this 200-word blurb that I'm doing doesn't have to be like, it's not winning a Pulitzer, So that's kind of finding the balance of striving to do stuff that I really like, and at the same time doing what I have to do is a balance that I really try to strike.
I love that, man, because I just worked a sports broadcasting camp for young kids that are aspiring to be sports journalists when they grow up, and
That's awesome.
yeah, it's great to see that so many kids want to be a part of it, but it's also, and I say this kind of just being young as well still, that it's also kind of scary just to see what's kind of plastered in front of them and maybe just the obvious things they have to learn it. So to hear that people like yourself and people remember my conversation with Rick Cleveland a couple years ago. Rick and I learned so much from Rick,
Oh,
but
I
he
love
literally
Rick.
just
Rick's my guy. Yeah.
he is mine too. He's just so willing to teach, and it's like you learn so much. We talk for maybe an hour, and I learn probably more from Rick than I have from a lot of people in an hour worth of conversation. But like, it's just not easy to continue doing what you guys are trying to do in the sports media world right now. So I love to hear you say that, and I'd say I appreciate you for doing what you're doing too, man. Because I know it's not easy, but I know especially now, just kind of where you're at, like you said, we are definitely a media-based team, and a lot of people have their eyes on us, especially for this upcoming football season. So I know the kind of, I'm sure, rigors you have on what your work is like right now.
Yeah, look, it's demanding, but at the same time, like, when you're writing about sports, like, I mean,
No matter
you're writing about a kid's game at the end of it, and so I do try to remind myself of that, like, hey, I'm not a war correspondent here. Like, this is supposed to be fun, and it is for the most part. So, but yeah, I appreciate all that, man, and I'm really enjoying covering, this team and this school. It's they keep me busy, but yeah, it's been fun.
I love that. I want to ask you, what was your process of attending Penn State? Was that your first option? Did you have any other choices about colleges? And what kind of maybe had been the deciding factor in you attending Penn State?
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly, thinking back, like, I think I was probably always going to end up there.
Mm-hmm.
I had kind of tossed around a couple of options. I think the only other school I visited was Seton Hall, and that was a little bit like, I knew I was going to be jumping into a place where there were more people than what I was used to, but
Yeah.
Seton Hall was a little bit too much for me in that regard. So, but yeah, I just I had applied to a bunch of different places, and I had a lot of options, but Penn State was kind of like the right balance of, it has the opportunities that I need, right? Like, it has an elite student newspaper, really good, sports specific journalism program. And, I can kind of step into an environment that's bigger than what I'm used to without really being overwhelmed. So that's was kind of the decision process for me. And it was a great, a great choice, really. I, within, I think 2 months of being on campus, I got like an internship that I really did not deserve, but I knew a couple people, and I ended up, and that turned into my first full-time job. So it's like, that was where I was supposed to be, I guess. And yeah, but no, definitely, it's probably always where I was going to end up. And I guess I'm avoiding the real reason, or maybe not the real reason, but one of the big reasons too is like, as a kid, I was a diehard Penn State basketball fan.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, and I think you're seeing a little bit right now with Ole Miss right now too, with the enrollment that Ole Miss is getting. Like,
Yeah,
like that stuff matters.
it does.
So kids develop these emotional attachments, and then they end up at those schools. So, that was definitely part of it for me too.
I 100% agree. I was going to throw that in there earlier, but I didn't want to say. And I'm honestly glad you brought it up. I love Oxford, I really do. And when I got here almost 2 years ago as well, it was completely different than it is now. But that has not changed my love for this place. But I also think that it's kind of like what you said, just a element of how we've come, I'd say, as an athletic program, not just football, but like Chris Beard has taken over. Coach Yo has taken over. I know Mike Bianco's squad didn't have the year they wanted, but we just won a national championship a few years ago. Like our track team just, had a couple girls that, and a guy that just made some noise in the NCAA tournament and won a couple trophies. We are kicking butt right now in Oxford, Mississippi, and I'm truly happy to be a part of it. But like you said, with that comes increased enrollment, and kind of just the elements of being a part of a true college town.
Less parking.
Yeah, and that's speaking on being on campus a lot too, man. That is it's a difficult manner to kind of deal with, especially like on game days too, when you're trying to, even if you have like a certain place you can park it, it's kind of difficult to manage. But I still tell people, if you get the chance to come to a game day in Oxford, make your way down. There's no better place on earth to do it though.
Yeah, it's really cool. It really is. I've been to a lot of places, and they've all got their unique things, but just walking through the Grove, beforehand, like, there's not much that's comparable to that. It's really cool. Definitely special.
David, what was your college process like, man? What was it like being at Penn State? Maybe what were some of the things that you picked up and throughout your journey in college that maybe you still use today? But just what was it like being a part of the Penn State program for 4 years?
Yeah. I would say that what Penn State did for me, rather than, like the in-class instruction, was it provided me with places outside of class to go just do this. And that's really what, I think kind of got me to where I am. I don't know. My thing in college was I covered I covered Penn State hockey really intensely, which I really loved. I love hockey, and everybody down here looks like I've got 5 heads when I say that. But so that was kind of my thing. That was like my first beat. A place where I could make low consequence mistakes, I would say, and just kind of figure this out. I got to cover in Penn State football too, and the mistakes were of higher consequence there, but I still certainly made some. And I just figured out what it means to report on something that lots of people really truly have a passion for. And all the while I was doing, I was the sports editor and then the digital managing editor of my college paper. And so I kind of learned how to I guess, things that people don't really think about when they think about sports journalism, like SEO and how to read analytics and how to understand what stories perform and why, and how to optimize stories so that you get the most eyes on them possible. And those skills turned out to be really important too. So it was really comprehensive, man. Like, just, and that's what I always tell. I mean, occasionally I'll get somebody who asks me for advice, like very occasionally. And I always tell them, like, the best things that you can do if, writing is your thing. Obviously it's probably different for, TV, but best 2 things you can do are read a ton, find somebody who you like to read and figure out why you like to read them, and try to emulate that as best as you can. And 2, just do it. Like, whether it's, somebody somewhere, the newspaper business is such that, if you send an email, like, somebody's going to let you go cover a Friday night football game somewhere, So it's that's it. You just got to do it. And Penn State gave me the chance I needed to do that.
I love 2 things that you just said, man. And the first is reading. I love when people tell me you always have a book in your hand, and I do. And that's not just because I love to read, but I think that reading has helped me write better. I think it's helped me speak better. I think it's allowed me to learn more things in any element that I'm trying to do. So I love to hear you say that. And
Yep.
secondly, you kind of just talked about just do it. I literally and I can just use you an example too. We had never have a conversation before I asked you if you would be willing to do an interview on the show. You and as well as so many other people, I've never had any real conversation with beforehand, but I took a chance and reached out or I went up to these people and asked, would you ever be willing to do an interview on my podcast? Luckily, you and other people have said yes, and we've had amazing conversations. And I tell people that all the time. And this doesn't even just have to be in our world of sports. This could be anything. Go do it. Like go out, find people, meet people, connect people, ask questions. Because even if some people, there are going to be some people that are going to be jerks and not maybe wanting to share a lot of information or connect. There's going to be people out there that want to see you succeed. And that's kind of the beauty of this. And so I love that you said that because those are two like deep things for me as well. And I think that no matter where we go in any of this media world, those two things are going to be consistent no matter what. And I really mean that. Like I know some people don't like reading, but I love it, and I think it's kind of out a lot. So I love to hear someone else say that, man.
Yeah, yeah. I give you a ton of credit for doing this. Like seriously, but yeah, no, I'm totally with you on the reading. I'm always reading. Like it's funny. Like before baseball games, I'll be sitting in the press box and I'll have like old Sports Illustrated archives pulled up, and I'm just reading. Everybody looks at me like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like. But I don't know. It's just I love to do it. So
yeah.
I'm kind of weird in that way, but I'm glad to know I'm not the only one.
No, you're not, man. David, I want to ask you, throughout your career, man, have you had any important mentors throughout your career that have kind of just continued to pour in words of wisdom and advice to you? And if so, who are those people? And as well, maybe have you had any writing idols that you just kind of read and watched from a distance that have continued to kind of just inspire you in doing what you do?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my first mentor really was Nate Bauer, who he runs the Penn State On3 site now.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of gave me my first shot at this, and he's been he's probably honestly if he doesn't give me that shot, then I don't know if I'm here right now. So he's been really helpful. And even some of my editors, now that I have Phil Kaplan, at the USA Today Network is great. So those, John Affleck, when I was still in school, a professor, he's a former AP guy, and he was also really helpful. So yeah, I've been blessed with that for sure. But yeah, I've definitely got some heroes. No doubt about it. I grew up, I grew up reading Mike Puma in the New York Post. He's their Mets guy.
Yeah.
I read Jeff Pearlman constantly, Sports Illustrated legend. His books are like unbelievable. I don't know if any of your listeners have ever read his books, you'll know what I'm talking about. They're just ridiculous. And then, I think every sports writer who enjoys features kind of looks up to Wright Thompson, Oxford's own.
Yeah.
Obviously he's, for my money, the best at that right now, in the sports world at least. And honestly, if there's somebody outside of sports that's better than him, then I haven't seen it. So he's incredible. But yeah, it's just the nice thing, and obviously, the internet has changed journalism in a lot of ways that maybe isn't great. But the nice thing is you have access to everybody's work all the time.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no excuse if you want to go find good journalism. I mean, it's everywhere. So
Yeah.
I really sometimes if I'm just bored, that's what I do is I just find something, and yeah, it's helpful in that way.
I know you had the opportunity to work in Hattiesburg for Southern Miss, and their work down there. How'd you get that opportunity, man? And as well, what was the change of scenery like, man? I know coming down to the South is a different life-changing kind of event, but what was the change of scenery like for you, man?
Yeah. So I had kind of decided that like the message, I had worked for Rivals and then On3, and I
Mhm.
had kind of decided that like the message board scene was not for me. I want to do something more traditional,
Yeah,
newspaper stuff, and um, I put some feelers out. I One of my college professors, who I previously mentioned, knows Phil Kaplan, who was part of the hiring team for that position, and so with that connection, I got an interview and I got the job. So, but yeah, that change of scenery was wild in so many ways because like I don't know, I'm a person that runs hot to begin with, and so I think my first week down there, I got down there in May, and I'm wearing sweatshirts. It's like 35 degrees in Pennsylvania in May, and then in Hattiesburg it's like 100 stuff. I'm like, oh my lord, you know. That's one thing I appreciate about Oxford is it's still hot, but it's a little more temperate. You get seasons at least, Um, but and work wise, it was really interesting because for a couple years professionally, and before that um, as a student, I had covered Penn State, and just the way that you cover Penn State and the way that you cover Southern Miss are just so different, right?
yeah,
Because Southern Miss, um, they were. This is again, it sounds archaic, but Southern Miss to an extent still relies on the media to get their message out,
yeah.
right? They're not this enormous brand that um, doesn't really need you. Like Ole Miss does not need us around. Period.
Mhm.
Um, we don't really, occasionally, maybe one of our stories, blows up or whatever. But to uh, broadly speaking, Ole Miss has a bigger reach than we do. You know, um, but at Southern Miss, they need to cultivate a good relationship with you. They
Yeah,
need you to kind of tell those stories, and so that was really interesting. I made some really good relationships there. It blew my mind to be able to be at like every football practice because that was not the case. I um, just walking the sidelines, and people come up and say, "Hey," like it was really. Um, I really enjoyed it, and I still have really good relationships with a lot of the folks down there. They're they have a special place in my heart because they grind, and it's not easy. And I respect that because institutionally and just kind of with the changes in college athletics, they're up against it. And
yeah.
but yeah, I really I would say those 8 9 months, however long I was there, were some of my favorite doing this job. It was really enjoyable.
That's awesome. And Southern Miss has one of the most devoted fan bases in the country for people that may not be familiar with their program. It's definitely, of course, like David just said, not one of the bigger programs, but they have uh very, very dialed in fan base and travel really well as well. And so kind of being a part of just the Mississippi sports culture, it's kind of been cool to see them from a close far. And I want to ask you, when and I can even kind of attest to this now, kind of a dead period now, no football, no basketball, no baseball, but I know there's still like recruiting and transfer. How do you kind of what's the process of you coming up with stories
Yeah.
and how do you kind of work on that and kind of figure out maybe I want to use this, I don't want to use this? What's maybe like just a little bit of a process of you kind of working on what you want to write for, what you want to put out, and maybe and I right now I'll leave it at that. That's kind of a lot right now, but I'll leave it at that right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's tough, right? It's not easy. Um, I with everything that went on with baseball, we had some stuff to talk about after that, which was good. Um, but really, it's just finding a way to come up with some original stuff. I use the summer a lot to something that I really enjoy is the finances of college athletics. And so, I spend a lot of the summer digging up numbers, making public records requests. And I write a lot about money in the summer,
Yeah.
And so, but there, you just kind of have to be opportunistic a little bit because, there still are, right. If you can go on the Rebel road trip, you can listen to Kiffin and Keith Carter speak and get stuff out of that. Last week I was in Thibodeau at the Manning Passing Academy. I got a few stories out of that. Right now we don't have a Mississippi State writer. We're working on hiring one, so I was able to do both Jackson Dart and Blake Shapen from that. But yeah, it's tough. I like, working in a network helps with this, but I will like blatantly steal somebody's idea if I like it, like, that's the one thing that, working in a network helps with is that's great. I love what the Auburn guy did, I'm going to do an Ole Miss version of that. So there's a lot of that, but I don't know. I think part of the deal with this job is, from August through December, I'm going 100 miles an hour. And then I get a little break until football till baseball and the two basketballs start to overlap. And then I'm going 100 miles an hour again for another couple months. And so I think taking this time to like just breathe a little bit is important. Otherwise you get burnt. And I try again. I have like the compulsion to like, I don't have anything scheduled for today. Like, but I try to give myself the time to take a deep breath and kind of recharge a little bit during this time of year too.
I was going to ask you, outside of your career, man, when you're trying to recharge, what are some of the things that you kind of do to kind of just keep you calm and kind of just square your time away when you're not working?
Yeah, that's interesting. I video games, big video game guy. I'm a big, I'm outside a lot. I like to just go for walks and stuff. If you're in Oxford, you've probably seen me at Lamar Park. Like I'm there pretty much every day taking a walk, big reader. So yeah, I mean, those are really probably the big three. Yeah, I don't know. I have kind of basic extracurricular interests, I guess. And honestly, like I'm watching a ton of sports in my free time too, so it's like, I don't watch as much as I used to. Cause it's like, if I just cover a college basketball game, there was a time where I'm coming home and I am turning on the Pac-12 games at 9:00, and I'm not doing that anymore. But I'm still, it's definitely still love it. So still watching a ton of that stuff.
Give me some of your top video games of all time, and I have to.
Gosh.
Well, are you excited about the new college football game coming out soon?
So I have to get me right now. I'm a PC guy. So I have to get me a console for the new game. I'm like, I just can't click purchase on it. I'm one of those guys who's like, if there's a big purchase I got to make, I just like procrastinate, but I will get there. And yeah, I am excited. Dalen, I'm a big Pokemon nerd.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Right now I'm playing like the, there's like unofficial games that are like hacked to be harder and have like adult difficulties. I'm playing those. So those are some of my favorites. I used to play, grew up with Madden, all the sports games, Call of Duty. I really like, because I think you're a soccer guy, right? So I'm a big Football Manager guy. Yeah. So yeah, those are probably my go-tos.
I love that, man. And I'm glad you brought that up, man. I know you're a Wolves fan, correct?
I am. Yeah. Yeah.
What's it like explaining to people that may not be big soccer fans like us? What's it like being a soccer fan, man? I say there's nothing else like it. And it's kind of just a true emotion. And watching the Euros and Copa
Yeah.
America right now is pretty fun too. What's it like being a Wolves fan?
It's nothing has the ability in anything, any kind of sports that I've watched, for whatever reason, like nothing has a grip on my emotions like soccer does. You know, like it's just, I'm at the point where it'll ruin my day. You know,
Yeah,
like it will. And that's never really been me, but it is with soccer for some reason. So, but yeah, I'm trying to think if there's like an SEC equivalent of Wolves. It's probably like Kentucky, like once in a while they're like pretty good. Most of the time they're not relevant. But I don't know. And I think it's like I have this with my sports teams, like, and I really think it's a result of just kind of having the Mets like passed on to me as a kid. Like, I cannot just go pick the good team. I can't.
yeah,
Like, I have to. It has to be the little brother. It has to be like the team that doesn't have the money. Like, I just can't go root for the big guns. So that's how I ended up there. But yeah, man, it's like, I mean, Team USA this week, the last couple of days, again, like I'm still angry.
I
I
feel
don't know
you.
what it is about soccer, but it's like just makes me lose any kind of like pragmatism, and I'm just upset. uh, at the same time, I should say it's really fun when you're
Yeah.
not just brutally, pissed. But yeah,
Yeah, I feel you, man, and I know my mom watching whenever this comes out is truly attesting to that because, dude, like you said, there's something about it. Like, and I tell people, you're like, how do you watch soccer? I'm like, when you find a club and you support it, it's like your whole life, and it's easy, like you said, like literally. And people who don't know, I'm an Arsenal fan. Us not winning the title this year literally kind of put me in a sour mood for probably 2 weeks, and it's still in the back of my mind.
yeah.
But at the same time, just like kind of being a part of it, and us being so bad for so long, and kind of now kind of just consistently kind of getting the notoriety of being a good team with a lot of good players, and of course, I love my manager. It's fun, man. Like it's an opportunity that I don't think people really get, and like they're coming to LA in a few weeks. I'm gonna be up there and kind of experience that for the first time.
Wow, that'll be fun.
And I'm even like excited for like the World Cup that's going to be here in a few years. And like I think kind of, I honestly think people are kind of getting more involved with soccer in the whole. And I hope that we can get our soccer situation kind of figured out, and so we can I can be a little bit more happy with that. But it's a sport like no other, I'd say. So I love to hear you say that.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. It's like, and for me, like in my job, it's one thing where like, I can be shamelessly a fan online or whatever. Like, I'm never gonna go cover a Premier League. You know what I mean? Like, there are no conflicts of interest here. So, it's good in that regard too.
Yeah, man. Man, you have the opportunity to work in Big Ten country and now SEC country, man. What has those two tales been like for you? And so far throughout your time in Oxford, what's it been like, man? I know it's a crazy town, but it's definitely a devoted town to the school. What's it been like here in Oxford so far, man?
Yeah. The Big Ten and the SEC are like, I would say pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
The Big Ten likes to pretend that it's not. Like it's there's an element of like, we're not in the weeds with them. Like they pretend that they still care about academic. They don't. They want to win football games, but you know, but they're similar in a lot of ways. But yeah, Oxford, man, like, it's a special place. It really is. It's small, but at the same, it's got what you need. And it's got character, which I really like. It's just, and really the people, right? Like the people are just, they want to help. They genuinely care about you. They want to have a conversation. The story that I tell to all my family and friends that are up north is like, um, when I would go grocery shopping, I would have my AirPods in and listen to a podcast, right? And you can't do that here because people want to talk to you in the store, And so but I like that,
Yeah.
It's much different, and but yeah, nothing but good things to say. That the weather, don't love the weather, but everything else is good.
I feel you, man, because I love this place, and then I have, like you said, I've met some people just in 2 years that have poured a lot into me, and have just really want to see me succeed and help me out. And I don't know if I would have been able to do that anywhere else. So I'm like, I am glad that I made the opportunity to come to school here, and it's been a really just good part of my last 2 years of my life, and I hope another good 2 years. And I feel that point as well about you about the grocery store thing, man. Like, and I'm not big or anything, but I've had people come up to me like, "Oh, you're a podcaster, right?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they'll just go out
Yeah.
in conversation with them like I've known them for 10 years, and I think that's kind of the beauty of where we are, man. Like it's there's no place like Oxford, and I love that it's kind of getting the notoriety for what it is now, and so I love to kind of hear you say that too, man. Um, I want to ask you I kind of asked this earlier, and this may kind of be repetitive, but I don't know if I kind of indulged in it like I did. When you're at a game, specifically, when you're at a baseball game, football game, basketball, what are some of the things that you're taking in, and kind of how do you piece together out of a game? Maybe something happened with the coaches, a manager, players. How do you kind of piece together what you kind of put into a story to kind of talk about after the game?
Yeah. So my goal, so I'll say this: we have a system, right? I have at the buzzer of just about every game that I cover a story that's done.
Yeah.
So final horn goes. I have 400, 500 words. That's just here's what happened in the game. But afterward, really, what my goal is, I kind of operate under the assumption that everybody who is interested in reading what I'm about to write has probably already seen the game, right? This isn't 1950. Like, you watched Ole Miss Auburn on ESPN. You don't need me to tell you what happened. So, my goal is, okay, what are the questions that I still have about what I saw that I can go get answers to for my readers post game? Or if nothing's really pressing, okay, what moment kind of defined this that I can go use the interviews to kind of find out more about? Or sometimes it's all right. They just kicked the crap out of Mercer. What about what I just saw? What does what I just saw say about their chances against Tulane? Right? Like it's always, at this point with the way the internet is, like it's always about more than recapping the game to me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, during the game, I'm just really, I've got my head in the laptop. Like people, on Twitter, people will ask me like, "Hey, did you see that holding call on third?" It's like, no, I was, like I saw the play, but I definitely didn't see it well enough to know whether like he had a grip of his jersey because I'm writing this stuff. So,
Yeah.
But so really, early in the game, I try to get as much material as I can from the sidelines that people might not see, from just the feel for the environment, and then late in the game, I'm kind of like my head's in my laptop. I'm watching the play, then I'm writing because I need to be ready at the final whistle.
So say we have an 11 a.m. game. Give me kind of like a day in the life for you on a game day. What time do you get up? When do you arrive to the stadium? What are maybe some of the things you do before the game starts, if anything? Do you have like a specific deadline you have to have a story out by? Like give me a day in the life of you for a game day, maybe.
Yeah, sure. So for an 11 a.m. game, here's a good difference about the SEC and the Big Ten. Writers in the Big Ten get to games like 5 hours early. Writers in the SEC, like most SEC press boxes, don't open until 2 hours before kick. So, noteworthy difference. But so I'll get up, I'll make myself breakfast and probably lunch. Because I have, it's not interesting, but I'm allergic to like half the things on planet Earth, so I got to bring my food to most places. So I'll make myself lunch, and then I'll probably get to the stadium around. I can get in earlier at Ole Miss because I have a season-long credential, so probably around 8:30 for an 11 o'clock game. I'll get set up. I will, so usually if there's injury news that I'm anticipating, I'll write that up and I'll get my binoculars out and see who's hurt and who's not. Then once the game starts, so USA Today has they want an instant game story. So I'm working on that during the game. And then almost immediately afterward, they want like a report card story. So like offense A, defense B type of thing. So I'm working on those during the game. And by the time that I sit down in the press conference room afterward, those have been published. Those are edited and ready to go. So then usually I will write another story kind of on the news of the day. Like it's football, inevitably somebody's going to get hurt. Or, if they don't, Lane Kiffin's probably going to say something noteworthy because he's Lane Kiffin. Yeah. So, I'll have another story. And then to finish, my fourth story of the day will be like something longer that's just kind of it can either be like a breakdown of a play. It can kind of be my take on what happened. It's supposed to be the best thing that I write that day. So yeah. I'll take some time, and then for an 11 a.m. game, I'm leaving around 6:37. I'll go get some dinner. I'll see if I can go get a walk in or something just to not feel gross. And then I'm usually cooked. Like I'm not going out for drinks after I'm so exhausted. So it's, I'm in bed probably by like 10. Maybe I'll watch some of the other football, and that's it. It's a lot. It's a long day, but it's always fun.
You may or may not have an answer to this, and that's okay. But I know you have come a long way so far in your career. Do you have an end goal? Is there something or somewhere you want to be in the long run that you're like, this is where I wanted to be, and I can't reach any greater height, or are you just kind of doing what you can do and enjoying the journey while you have it?
Yeah, I try to be present for sure. Like, but I think I would like to end up in a situation, and I don't really care where this is. It could be here, where I have the time and the permission, I guess, to not have so much of like the day-to-day news churn, and be able to really sink my teeth into like, longer, deeper stuff. Whether that's magazine writing, whether that's, still newspaper writing, but just with a little bit of a different job description, that would be great. So because that's really what I love to do. I get to do some of it, but most of my time is spent doing other things right now. So that would be awesome. That's probably my dream goal.
I love that, man. I have to ask you 3 patented questions that I always ask.
Right.
And the first one is, I'm a music lover, and so I love to ask people kind of what their music taste is, who are some of their favorite artists and songs. So what is some of your go-to artists? And maybe I want to ask you too, has it changed since you've kind of been in the South for a few years now?
When people ask me about music, I usually say I'm a podcast person. So my music taste is not very refined. I'm still listening to my road trip playlist is my road trip playlist from my senior year of high school in 2016. You know what I mean? So it's there's a little country on there. There's a little hip hop. I don't listen to a ton of music, but what I do listen to is pretty versatile. So I won't be upset at anything that comes on. I'll put it that way. I like a little bit of everything.
I got you. Dave, you can have dinner with 5 people, dead or alive. Who would they be and why?
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
The 5th one is always a hard one, so sometimes I just kind of leave the 5th one off. So
all right. Wright Thompson. We're going to go with so my maternal grandfather was in the Olympics, and I never really got to talk to him about it. And he's passed away, so I'll go with him.
That's cool.
I will go with my childhood hero growing up was David Wright, so we'll go with David Wright. That's 3. Oh geez. We're gonna bring Lane Kiffin for the small setting humor, and then I'm just playing, but honestly, just the quips, the quips would be so funny. And then, all right, one more. Geez. I'm gonna go with with Bob Costas, because you know what? Actually, I'm gonna go with Tom Verducci instead.
I love either one of those answers. That's dope. This is kind of 2 questions in one. You kind of talked about a little bit of both of them, and so there may be more of an in-depth answer to these questions. But first is, if you have any advice to people watching or listening, this doesn't have to be about what you do in your career. This could be about life in general. If you have any piece of advice that you want to give to people watching and listening, what piece of advice would that be? And secondly, I'm big on legacy and just, kind of doing things that I'm proud of. And, one day when I'm gone, that people hopefully take from my work and what I've done, and it helps better their lives in some way. And so when people think about you and talk about David Eckert, what do you want them to always kind of remember and know who you were for as a person?
Wow. That's a great question. I think I want people to think of someone who, thinking about it from a journalism perspective, who did it with integrity, right? Who did not sacrifice the right way to do the job to chase a scoop or some clicks, who is empathetic toward the people that he's writing about, and instead of just slinging a sword saying you should have done this, you're second guessing that, tries to understand why people do things and why they have the feelings that they have. And really that kind of extends out to life too. I think really one of, the things that I care about most is empathy, just trying to put yourself in someone else's mind and understand their actions, instead of judging them for it. And so, yeah, but somebody who, I've had, some stuff to overcome health wise, and is somebody who has really, you know, grinded to be good at this, to try to be good at this, despite, some stuff that doesn't make it easy all the time. And so, that's what I would hope for. But yeah, I mean, advice, like, it's just, again, um, I've benefited greatly from, I think, taking jumps. Um, you know, I I don't think there's a lot of people moving from central Pennsylvania to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. It's but if you believe in your own ability to do something, I think you should go do it, and you should be willing to try new places or new things to make that happen. So, that would be, just speaking from my own personal experiences, the one piece of large scale advice that I would give.
Thank you, man. Um, because, and I've said this before, but this show is not about me. I know my name is on it, and I'm just the guy that's on here every week, but it's about people that I interview. And so I usually take these pieces of advice and it helps me beneficially in my life, but I hope it also takes someone watching and listening and it kind of helps them do well or better in the area of their life that maybe they're struggling in. And so I appreciate you for being able to share that because it can change someone's lives, whether you realize that or not. And so thank you for sharing that, man. And as well, thank you for joining because again, I've watched your work for a few months now, and you're truly doing a great job. And so I'm glad that I got you on and was able to share your story and kind of just have a conversation with you, man. It was really kind of cool and enjoyment to kind of talk with you, man, and learn from you a little bit too.
I got you back. Yeah, man. Sorry about that. My connection froze. But yeah, I really appreciate you having me. I think this is great. I think this is really impressive what you're doing, and I just I appreciate it. So if there's anything I can ever do for you, you just give me a shout. You know where to find me. So
I appreciate it, man, a lot. David, real quick, if you don't mind, could you share your social media so if people want to follow you, reach out to anything, they could do that real quick?
yeah, for sure. It's my name, which is David Eckert 98 on Twitter. You can find me there. All my work is on the clarionledger.com, so you can take a look at that as well. So, yep.
Thank you again, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. Like, I literally can't say this enough. I kind of feel like I'm a part of a football schedule. I do 20 episodes, and this is episode number 15. So we got 5 more left, and it kind of warms my heart to progress, but it also kind of gets sad when I finish the season and I take months off. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, learned, laugh with us, and take some of the things that David said and hopefully can apply it in your own life. Even if you're not a part of the journalism world, read a book, man. Like it can truly engage you in a lot of different things that you maybe never thought was possible. And reading is very vital and it's something that's dying, and I would love for it to not die. So go read a book, man. I'm sure a lot of you haven't read one in a while, so go do that and continue to enjoy life. So thank you again, David. And thank you guys for watching and listening. Subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and make sure you continue staying blessed. Thank you guys. Take care and God bless.